UHD quality video streaming, internet like a boss. SLT Mobitel Fiber. UHD quality video streaming, internet like a boss. SLT Mobitel Fiber.
Comfort Moodian භාගයයි කලක් පවතින අලුත් පෙනුමයි.
Tonight, glaring disparity. A new report finds that the world's 10 richest men more than doubled their fortunes during the pandemic.
At global level, there is no institution to really address this issue and reduce inequality.
Bridging the gap. The Power Ministry turns to Lanka IOC for necessary fuel to generate power. Excitement. People throng the Port City Promenade and the newly opened section of the Central Expressway. This Monday, the 17th of January 2022.
Fair and Lovely will alut nama then Glow and Lovely. Fair and Lovely then Glow and Lovely.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening, welcome to First at 9. I'm Hamid Kekanai. Now then, the world's 10 richest men more than doubled their fortunes during the 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic that has seen the income of 99% of humanity fall and over 160 million more people forced into poverty. This is the observation by the charity Oxfam in a new briefing, Inequality Kills, which was published today ahead of the World Economic Forum's Davos agenda. But a local sociology expert believes addressing this situation is far from easy.
In a new briefing, Inequality Kills, Oxfam says that the fortunes of the world's 10 richest men went up to $700 billion to up to $1.5 trillion during the pandemic hit 2 years. Oxfam International's executive director, Gabriela Bucher, notes that they now have 6 times more wealth than the poorest 3.1 billion people on the planet. Oxfam says that inequality is contributing to the death of at least 21,000 people each day, or 1 person every 4 seconds, with a new billionaire minted every 26 hours. It goes on to say that billionaires' wealth has risen more than COVID-19 began than it has in the last 14 years. At $5 trillion, this, it says, is the biggest surge in billionaire wealth since records began. Bukher states, billionaires have had a terrific pandemic. Central banks pumped trillions of dollars into financial markets to save the economy. Yet much of that has ended up lining the pockets of billionaires, riding the stock market boom. Vaccines were meant to end this pandemic, yet rich governments allowed pharma billionaires and monopolies to cut off the supply of billions of people. The result is that every kind of inequality imaginable risks rising. The predictability of it is sickening. The consequences of it kill. Unquote. The New Beginning also calls extreme inequality a form of economic violence. The policies and political decisions that perpetuate the wealth and power of a privileged few result in direct harm to the vast majority of ordinary people across the world and the planet itself.
Unless there is a global compact to reduce global inequality, I think we may not have any significant change in this situation. Global inequality, it is not something that you can address at a global level in the way that you address inequality at a country level. Mainly because at a global level, there is no institution like the state at a national level to really address this issue and reduce inequality. But on the other hand, inequality has always been addressed at a country level, and there are many examples across the world where income inequality has been contained within reasonable limits. Of course, it is easier said than done because inequality is a reflection of the structure of the economy and also the division of labor and also how various countries adopt measures to reduce inequality within a country.
Speaking further, Professor Emeritus on Sociology at the University of Colombo, Siri Hettige, then focused on the inequality front in Sri Lanka.
Reduce taxation to encourage investors, to encourage entrepreneurs to invest the resources in productive and other ventures, governments have been quite lenient towards taxation. But on the other hand, if you really don't adopt realistic taxation measures, you cannot contain income inequality. So as a result, we have seen rapid increase in income inequality over the last 4 decades.
Finally, Professor Hettige outlined what's required in his view to bring the income inequality gap closer.
We have no choice but to adopt progressive measures to redistribute income in favor of lower segments of the population. It is time to have a national compact to really address this issue. And of course, it is easier said than done because the economy is very much affected by the pandemic and some of the policies that we have adopted. And as a result, we are in a situation where on one hand, we are forced to address the issue of inequality. But at the same time, our space for addressing this issue has also become limited. I think it is really important that those with very high incomes to recognize the need for them to respond to this crisis situation without leaving it entirely to the government because they have to have a sense of social responsibility.
නියම ක්වලිටියට හැදෙන අලුත් ටියාරා රස පදමට අලුත් වෙලා.
Now then, the Minister of Power, Gamini Lokage, notes that the possibility of securing fuel necessary to operate power plants from the Lanka Indian Oil Company is being looked into. There are concerns after it was revealed that the Ceylon Electricity Board's fuel stocks is only sufficient to last until today. The Ceylon Petroleum Corporation has repeatedly said that it cannot provide the CEB with fuel on credit.
At the Cabinet media briefing last Tuesday, Cabinet co-spokesperson Ramesh Patirana said that scheduled power outages are possible until the generator failure at the Norachole power plant is addressed. What's more, the difficulty the Ceylon Electricity Board is facing when securing necessary fuel to generate power is also having an impact, adding to the power woes. In this backdrop, on Saturday, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation supplied 3,000 metric tons of diesel to the CB, so the Kalnithisa power plant, which ran out of fuel on the 13th, can generate power once more. That, however, is estimated to be sufficient for 2 to 3 days. In this backdrop, Minister of Power Gamini Lokage assured that there will be no power cuts today. With the malfunctioning generator at the Norachole power plant expected to be up and running on the 22nd, the question arises as to how the country's power requirement will be met over the coming days.
අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන හෙට මහා භාණ්ඩාගාරයකත් තේ සංස්ථාවෙක්වත් ලංකා බැංකුවෙක්වත් මුදල් අමාත්‍යාංශයකත් එක්ක සාකච්ඡා කරලා මේකට විසඳුමක් ලබා දෙන්න. අපි සාකච්ඡා කරනවා මේ අවස්ථාව පරිමහ ගන්න IOC සමාගමෙන් හරි විදුලි තෙල් ගන්න පුළුවන්ද කියලා. එහෙනම් මම විදුබලමයි සභාපතිතුමාටත් අපේ ලේකම්තුමිටත් කිව්වා IOC සමාගමත් එක්ක සාකච්ඡා කරලා බලන්න අපිට තෙල් ගන්න පුළුවන් කියලා.
එතකොට දැන් හිටින් පස්සේ සමාගමේ ඉඳන් නැති වුණොත් දෙන්න බැරිනොත් මේ විදුලිය කප්පාදුවක් සිදු වෙයිද?
යම් කිසි විදුලි කප්පාදුවක් සිදු වෙනවා නම් ඒ වෙලාවයි කාලසටහනයි ජනතාවට දැනුවත් කරනවා.
In the meantime, the Progressive Workers Union of the CPC requests the government to facilitate the importation of crude oil, which will lead to a supply of furnace oil needed for power generation by the CB. But the forex issues the country is confronted with means that sourcing dollars to pay the crude shipments is more than tricky. With this being the case, the Sabugaskanda crude oil refinery, which produces furnace oil for power plants in Sri Lanka, is closed until the 30th of this month.
In the meantime, the Ceylon Electricity Board Engineers Union intends to launch a sick leave campaign tomorrow. The association said that all CEB engineers, including the electricity engineers already engaged in operations, will be reporting sick. President of the CEB Engineers Union, Saumya Kumarawadu, says that the trade union action is being launched in protest of the arbitrary decision by the CEB chairman to appoint a new general manager at his discretion without following decades of tradition. He says that the employees of power plants operating 24 hours a day will continue to maintain the power grid and that everyone else will be on sick leave tomorrow. The Sri Lanka Medical Association says that the second dose vaccination for children aged between 16 and 19 will start towards the end of this month. They also urged parents to ensure that children between 12 and 15 years of age are vaccinated against COVID.
Vaccine efficacy has become a point of concern as more and more variants of COVID-19 emerge. Many studies continuously provided data showing that the effectiveness of the two-dose regime of vaccines waning over time depending on the variant. However, there wasn't a significant drop in vaccine efficacy despite the emergence of multiple variants of concern. But the emergence of the Omicron variant changed this opinion. Studies showed that an increased number of mutations in Omicron had sent the effectiveness of the Pfizer jab plummeting to as low as 30% compared to its 80% efficacy against Delta. This was consistent with other vaccines such as Sinopharm, J&J, Moderna and AstraZeneca as well. However, multiple studies reaffirmed that a booster dose is able to make up for the immunity loss through the two-dose regime. But this data has not been enough to persuade some people who continue to remain skeptical about the jab's effectiveness. Nevertheless, recent data from Alberta in Canada has shown that the rate of hospitalizations among booster recipients is comparatively low. It says that 143 people above the age of 80 who have received the booster were hospitalized. It also showed that 4,548 people from the same age group who are unvaccinated were in fact had to be hospitalized with COVID. As such, the researchers concluded that the vaccine was able to significantly protect individuals against the Omicron variant and also urged people to get the vaccine. Similarly, the study also showed the broad impact vaccines had on children as well. The importance of getting the vaccine for children has also been stressed by other studies that pointed to multisystem inflammatory syndrome to be a byproduct of COVID among children. As such, health experts globally and locally have continuously urged parents to ensure that their children get the vaccine to prevent unnecessary long-term issues. In Sri Lanka, health authorities have rolled out the vaccine for children between 16 to 19 and 12 to 15 age groups. Even though the overall turnout for vaccine administration among children in the 16 to 19 age group was positive, the same could not be said for 12 to 15 age group.
ජනවාරි මාස අගදී පෙබරවාරි මාස මුල භාගයේදී අපිට මේ දෙවෙනි මාත්‍රාව දීම ආරම්භ කරන්න පුළුවන් අවුරුදු 16ත් 19ත් අතර වයස් කාණ්ඩයට 12-15 වැක්සින් කරන්නේ අපි දකිනවා වැක්සින් ලබා ගැනීමට දෙමාපියන් ගොඩක් පැමිණෙන්නේ නැහැ. අපි දැනුවත් කිරීමක් කරන්න ඕනේ මව්වරුන්ට පියවරුන්ට තමන්ගේ දරුවන්ට ඒ අවශ්‍ය එන්නත ලබා දෙන්න. මොකද අපි දන්නවා දැන්නට බටහිර රටවල මේ වගේ මන්දගාමී ස්වභාවයක් තියෙනවා. ඇත්තටම ඒගොල්ලන් නීති පනවලා තියෙනවා විශේෂයෙන්ම පොදු ස්ථානවලට ඇතුල් වීමේදී ඒ වගේම පොදු ප්‍රවාහන භාවිතා කිරීමේදී ඒ වැක්සින ලබාගත් බවට සහතිකයක් දිය නොහැකි නම් උන්ට ඒ අවස්ථාව අහිමි කිරීමට ඉතින් මම හිතන්නේ ඉදිරියේදී ලංකාවත් එවැනි පිළිවෙතක් අනුගමනය කිරීමට අවස්ථාවක් තියෙනවා.
We will see you shortly on the other side of this break. Stay with us.
Big 3.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, the Sri Lanka College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists believe that even though Sri Lanka has a commendable low rate of maternal mortality, it is still not a cause for celebration. They say that the country's maternal mortality ratio has been stagnating for the past decade and mood the introduction of confidential inquiries into the island's maternal deaths and surveillance response mechanism.
Scientific analysis of morbidity and mortality by the professional colleges by the way of confidential inquiries will help to identify the root cause analysis and to decide on the strategies. Very often these problems are based on geography, hospital-based and unit-based. Ministry should empower the colleges in order to achieve these targets. Sri Lanka, being a middle-income country, has indicators that reflect satisfactory overall health status of the population. The infant mortality rate and the maternal mortality rate in Sri Lanka are among the lowest in Southeast Asian region. Maternal mortality ratio is 30 deaths per 100,000 live births in 2020, provisional reports. The objective of maternal death surveillance and response, MDSR, is to improve maternal health and to end preventable maternal deaths. Sri Lanka MDSR mechanism was introduced in 1981. In the way back of 1947, Sri Lanka recorded maternal mortality ratio of 1,694 per 100,000 live births. Gradually reduced to achieve the best maternal mortality ratio in the South Asian region, the reduction of the Sri Lanka maternal mortality ratio is impressive, yet are we satisfied? During the last decade, the maternal mortality ratio is stagnating around 32 per 100,000 live births. Therefore, we have to revisit the system of MDSR. And SLCOG would like to propose the internationally accepted system of confidential inquiries into maternal death.
Meanwhile, President of the Sri Lanka College of Obstetrician and Gynecologist Dr. Sanath Lanaral says that unregulated IVF programs in Sri Lanka do more damage than good.
And as you are aware, 7 to 10% of couples are waiting to get the IVF treatment. At present, there are no consensus about IVF pregnancies. We, as obstetricians and then the neonatologists, we are facing the worst outcome of unregulated IVF programs. Worst outcomes have an impact on increasing maternal mortality and increasing neonatal mortality rates. We have experienced maternal deaths due to IVF pregnancies of mothers with multiple comorbid factors and advanced maternal age. The cost of extreme prematurity is an enormous burden to healthcare system. SLCOG is in the view of establishing a regulatory authority for artificial reproductive technologies. Therefore, SLCOG, in collaboration with Attorney General Department and Family Health Bureau, has drafted the Human Reproduction and Genetic Act. The field of genetics and reproduction had once again been brought together. In the modern day, there's a cross-border gametes transferring, and there are a lot of new things have come, but we have no regulation over anything of genetic material transferring. The principal aim of the Act was now to establish a Human Reproduction and Genetic Authority in Sri Lanka.
Moving on with other local stories, Sri Lanka's permanent representative to the United Nations in New York, Mohan Piris, highlighted the need of unified strategies by the Global South to build back better from the COVID-19 pandemic. While speaking at the handover ceremony of the G77 chairmanship to Pakistan by the outgoing chair, the Republic of Guinea, Piris expressed belief that Pakistan will strengthen cooperation between the global North and South.
Sri Lanka pledges to rededicate itself to advancing and protecting the diverse and equally vital interests of each nation in the Group of 77 and China, with special focus on middle-income countries, least developed countries, landlocked developing countries, and small island developing nations. 2 years on from the COVID-19 pandemic, and with the ever-changing face and requirements the pandemic has placed on us, the act of building back better requires even further unified strategy of the Global South. We are hopeful that in this context of needing a more unified global Southern response to the economic and social hardships, Pakistan will take decisive steps to leverage the South-South cooperation. The economic revival of the global community remains the best option in reducing the harms of the pandemic and ensuring that education, food, and healthcare are adequately available regardless of geographical routes. To this end, we hope and we are confident that Pakistan's chairmanship will strengthen and revitalize the North-South cooperation.
Veteran singer and musician Neela Wickramasinghe passed away today. She passed away in the city of Milan, where she was recently appointed as the Consul General of Sri Lanka. Known for popular hits such as Master Sir as well as duets sung with T.M. Jayaratne, she was also a former teacher in music. She graduated in 1974 with a Sangeet Visharada degree after studying North Indian classical music. With over 55 years of experience in the industry, Wickramasinghe has contributed to over 60 films as a playback singer, while she has also contributed to hundreds of songs. She has won the Sarasavya Award thrice, Presidential Award, Sumati Telly Award, Zonta Award and a Vanitha Award. Neela Wickramasinghe was 71 at the time of her passing. Now then, Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan's party, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, said today that a considerable sum in funds were transferred to the account of Priyantha Kumara's widow in Sri Lanka. It said that $100,000 and another sum of $1,667 were thus transferred. The $1,667 sum, it said, is the first salary of the 10-year commitment made by Rajco Industries, which was announced by the Pakistani Prime Minister. Priyantha Kumara was lynched by a mob in Sialkot in Pakistan on the 3rd of December last year, where he was employed as an apparel factory manager. Now then, the Port City Marina and the Mirigama to Kurunegala stretch of the Central Expressway, both newly opened by the way, are attracting a considerable number of people. There were so many vehicles using the expressway, even traffic jams were formed. As far as the Port City Marina is concerned, it is estimated that some 20,000 people have visited it in the 7 days that followed since its opening.
The Marina Promenade of the Colombo Port City was declared open for the public on the 9th of January. And since then, there has been an outpouring of enthusiasm to visit it. Even today, 7 days later, there were long queues of people waiting to enter the premises. People who have frequented the facility was not limited to Colombo, with many coming from areas such as Kandy, Kurunegala, Matara, Hambantota and Matale. It is reported that over 20,000 people have come to see the newly opened section of the port city so far. The long weekend also gave the people a fantastic opportunity to get first-hand experience of the new addition. As such, the general public are able to visit the Marina Promenade at the Colombo Port City from 9 am to 6 pm every day. In the meantime, the second phase of the Central Expressway connecting Mirigama and Kurunegala, which was opened on Saturday, has already seen many people using it. Authorities say that 13,583 vehicles have used it within the 12 hours that followed since its opening. The Ministry of Highways stated that a sum of 2,805,100 rupees in income was generated in the 12 hours from yesterday afternoon to midnight.
Market analysts expect strong investor confidence during the upcoming week of trading at the Colombo Bourse. The all-share price index spiked last Thursday by 215.54 points to end at 13,338.49, while the S&P SL20 index of more liquid stocks closed at 4,554.94 after gaining 64.11 points. With that, here's Dimantha Mathi with what we can expect at the stock market during the week.
We feel that the momentum where there was a lot of confidence and flair in the market to have a positive impact on the upcoming week as well. So that is likely to push the market further into positive territory, and with it we feel that there will be stronger confidence levels from investors, and with it we feel that the plantation sector that has been in the limelight to continue to perform very well with the very strong oil palm prices that are there in the global market, and then the retail favorite counters are likely to be on the top of the turnover list, with strong investor interest likely to continue for the next week as well. So in addition to that, we feel that the life insurance sector is the one that is likely to continue with investor interest, and with the upcoming earnings season we are likely to experience very strong banking sector earnings and strong apparel sector earnings. So these are the two sectors that are likely to have investor interest in the upcoming week, growing at a rapid pace.
Australia and New Zealand sent surveillance flights today to assess damages in the tsunami hit Tonga. The Australian Air Force P-8A Poseidon aircraft was sent to assess damage to crucial infrastructure such as power lines and roads, while the New Zealand Air Force P-3K Orion was deployed to conduct reconnaissance. An underwater volcano off Tonga erupted on Saturday, triggering a tsunami on the shores of Tonga and cutting off phone and internet lines for the entire island. There are no official reports of injuries or deaths in Tonga as yet. And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.